Okay, started recording the webinar. Good, good. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on creating award-winning SharePoint intranets. I'm here with Bo George. Hey, Bo.
Hey.
And we're covering, this is a webinar that we've created out of a white paper or ebook that Bo recently created, I think, the end of last year. And appreciate you taking the time to go through this. So I want to welcome everybody to the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So what you had 8 things that we wanted to cover with this, and we'll step through those things and talk about sort of where they came from. Just a little bit of background before we do that. The whole idea of award-winning SharePoint intranets came from there's a company out there called Nielsen Norman who does an award around SharePoint intranets, and a couple of our, actually it's been a couple of the last 2 years, some of our clients have won the award. Mm-hmm. The first one being Cadwalader, and then this past year, I don't know if you saw this, but Goodwill ended up winning as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then I know we're nominating another one of our clients to win it for this year, so look forward to seeing if that goes through or not. So yeah, let's do it. Let's talk us through what our agenda is for today.
Okay. Well, so first thing, the first one, establish an inspired vision. Kind of going back to the title of the white paper that we did in this webcast, creating a award-winning SharePoint intranet. It's it's a kind of a big title. It's a little presumptuous. It's out there. It's inspiring in some ways, right? Like most people don't say that's what I want to do is create a award-winning intranet. They want to create an internet that their people will love.
Yeah.
Winning awards is maybe just a bonus on top of that, right?
Most of the time, my experience has been through the years is most of the time people are ashamed of their intranet.
Right. Yeah.
So award-winning, well, just something I want to.
Yeah. The flip side might be I want to create an intranet that doesn't suck. So
that could work.
Yeah. Yeah. So over 10 years now of doing portals, there's been a lot of lessons learned, big and small portals and all that kind of stuff, and so a lot of what I've got here came from those lessons. And so my agenda, of course, the first one is establishing an inspired vision, and I'll get into that, but I think that's where it all starts. I draw a lot on consumer grade products and the leaders of those companies and some of that sort of stuff, so I'll probably mention some of that as I'm going through. And this is not exactly stepwise, but it sort of is. After you have a vision, it's doing some homework, deciding on a brand for your portal, and then I talk about keeping it clean and simple, which gets more into implementation time.
Okay.
Thinking about planning for mobile, and also thinking about your users, your audience there. So that's number 6. And then number 7 and 8 are more like long-term things. As you're working through the project, stay patient and persistent. Portals is a living, breathing thing. It's not ever really done. And then analyze everything. It's kind of that feedback loop of learning from your mistakes, improving upon them, incorporating it back in your portal. So I'll talk about that stuff as well.
That's great. I appreciate everybody joining. And I've actually, if you look in the handout section of the GoToWebinar interface, I've went ahead and posted up the ebook up there so they can download that from there. And then also this presentation as well. If you want to download that and share it with others, that's great as well. So feel free to download those. And before we jump into this as well, if you've got any questions, we might have some time at the end that we can go through questions. Feel free to use the GoToWebinar interface as well, and I'll try to keep an eye out here for any questions that folks come up with, and Bo and I will do our best to answer those questions at the end of the webinar. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the first one.
Okay. All right. So so my first one, establish an inspired vision. It's this is all about setting the tone for what your portal will be. So you want to do it as the first thing. You want to do it as a team. You want it to be like the mantra, your marching orders. It's you know, it's got to be grand, because if it's bland, then it's not really going to inspire people to do much. Um, like I said in the second, you know, you want to bring others in because it can't be one man's vision.
Okay.
It's sort of got to be a team's vision.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, you're not only creating a vision, but you're also trying to bring everybody on and buy into your vision. So the more people you help establish that, the more have already bought into that vision. And like that last one, being grand is and almost unachievable is okay. And this is one that sticks in my mind about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and his, you know, connecting the world sort of vision and all these sort of grand plans for Facebook, which, you know, when he was in his dorm room 10 years ago or whatever, people would have said you're crazy, but it's that sort of far offness that keeps you striving and doing things, and people probably think that's a little bit crazy for a portal. But if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of show you.
That's my cue, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. So I'll show you two different examples, and these are, you know, obviously contrived. But if you're a very tactical company, and you just think of SharePoint as a place to store your documents, then you might just say, well, that's our portal. It's a place to store our documents, and now we've got it boxed in, and that's really all it is, right?
That's very inspiring. It's a place to store all your documents.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's
the new file share.
Right. Yeah, and that's a lot of approach that people come to it. It's like I just get my files online. But, but you look at the second one, and it's we seek to organize all our content into a single unified portal where anyone at any time on any device can access what they need to do their job. And so there's so many facets in there. It's organizing your content, which speaks to metadata. It's the word content instead of documents that says it's other things.
So it's structured and unstructured data.
Yeah, single unified is you know, so many big companies have 4 different portal technology projects or products, and so it's a unified portal. Maybe you're saying we're gonna settle on this one platform or something. Anyone, anytime, and any device speaks to when I'm at home, on my phone, or in an airport.
I could be working from anywhere.
Right. It's, you know, it's grand, and we're getting there with just Office 365 natively. So, you know, a lot of that stuff would have seemed really grand 5 years ago, but now is sort of commonplace now, right?
And this is where we're starting to see that more often people are sort of calling SharePoint like the digital workspace. You're seeing people use that term, where it's more of where people are getting things done. You know, your workplace to go, you know, workspace to go into work together with your colleagues and actually, you know, doing more line of business types of applications, and just utilizing this more for how I get my job done.
Yeah, and the anyone, anytime, any device thing is so relevant now. I mean, I work on my laptop most of the time, but I'm on my phone some of the time. I might be on my iPad another bit of the time. And so this portability, where people used to be afraid if my laptop dies, there goes 2 weeks of my life or something, right? Right now, somebody could take my laptop away, and I don't think I would lose anything, because everything digital is in SharePoint, or it's in a code repository for code, stuff like that. So
nice, very nice.
This is the not so fun one. This is
do your homework.
Yeah, and I got the little boy there doing his homework. I wanted a picture because this is.
You didn't put Barrett up here. You should have put Barrett in there.
He doesn't do his homework. No, he does it at school or whatever. But you know, my point here is especially now with Office 365, there's this real tendency to, well, we already have SharePoint stood up for us. Let's just go in and start doing stuff, and fight that tendency a little bit to do some homework, some planning, some preparation before you jump right in, because you know, you could end up with the digital file share where you can't find anything if you don't do your planning. So strategic planning, that's kind of more of the stuff about what do we want this to be? Is it just for documents? Where do we draw the line of what belongs in our SharePoint portal versus other potential places, like a line of business application that is in a database or something like that? Because, you know, absolutely everything doesn't have to go in SharePoint. Maybe there's some integration points between them. So that strategic planning around what goes where, which feeds into a governance plan and all that sort of stuff, one of the key things to get you going. And then, like I said, don't jump into implementation too quickly. So just because you have an environment out there, don't go straight to the root of the portal, create a document library, and load stuff in. I actually just on a project last fall or last winter, I guess, we were migrating somebody into Office 365. Turns out that the first department in to Office 365 decided that their root site collection was going to be theirs. And so now, 6 months after that or whatever, the rest of the company's coming on board, and now the most obvious place where everyone should go has been taken by a single department. So that sort of jumping in without thinking created some challenges where now what you would think is the natural place for the whole company to go is not anymore. So that sort of thing. And then information architecture and taxonomy are more important than ever. I think back in our 2007 days and before, we were so focused on just the coolness of being able to upload documents and all that sort of stuff. We didn't think about how am I going to find them when I have 10,000 of them or 1,000,000 of them.
Yeah.
And so information architecture and taxonomy have been around forever, but they're just getting more and more important as we get more and more digital content. And I think I just wrote a blog on why I love managed metadata and turn sets.
It was a love story.
It was a love story. And so that, like, my next slide, I think,
You didn't talk with Beth about this, that
No.
you're in love with managed metadata.
Yeah, I just love taxonomy. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but yeah, it's
That's all right. Well, I see with this that it's almost through the years, it's been a blessing and a curse for SharePoint, where it's so easy to set up, and to get sort of going with it, and you almost skip the planning process.
Right.
So people, it's like one of those things. We'll come into a company and it's like, Joe set it up years ago, and it's just sort of taken off, and nobody really thought about how we're going to use this. So
Yeah.
it's pretty common, isn't it?
Yeah. But all too common. And it's a maturity thing for all organizations, right? Like I listened to you and Kirk's migration
You were the
talk
one
before, and I think of that as a maturity, right? Like a lot of our 2007 farms were kind of, one way. 2010 we got a little smarter, and I think 2013 even better. And as a community of people using SharePoint, we're all getting better. And so now some of the things we used to focus on, we don't even have to think about, and now information architecture, taxonomy, we can focus more on. And that's, this drawing I did on a piece of paper, and then I scanned it in, so it looked pretty.
Oh, that's you, huh?
Yeah, so it looked pretty for the white paper.
Yeah.
So all of this was straight out of my brain, but what I really want to focus on here is, first in the center, all the boxes, that's our site structure. So at the top I've got portal and departments and projects and communities, and this draws on a lot of experience from a lot of different customers as sort of a very typical portal site structure. And within departments you'll have multiple sites and projects and communities, and they each might have different life cycles. Like departments live forever unless the department's shut down, right? But projects probably have a fixed life cycle, and communities may or may not. So you've got that site structure, and then that's just one piece of the pie, because now with the site structure, your document libraries at each of those sites can have different metadata associated with it. Even automatic metadata, which was a lot of fun for one of our customers. So if I upload a document to the marketing department site, it might automatically be tagged with marketing, and then I might have a choice of document types that are specific to the marketing department. Whereas if I'm in the IT department, my choices are different, my automatic tags are different, and all that site structure is your fundamental basis for how your metadata can be applied automatically or optionally based on that sort of stuff. And then that all, sort of in my big bubble around everything is search. And so all of that ultimately matters in search when you have no clue where the document is. You come in through your Google box, search box, and you're just looking for something. You just type a term. And then all those, the automatic data or the metadata people supplied is how you refine that content, not having a clue about where it might actually live. So So I love that slide as a way to communicate all the importance of all that sort of stuff.
Can we do this for our intranet?
Yeah, cobbler's son has no shoes.
I'm gonna hire you.
Yeah.
You saw the meeting for next week, right?
Yeah.
We're going to.
Well, and we're doing things like out in front of people too, right? So we try things and then we back off because we want to be able to educate our customers. So yeah,
we try a lot of things. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Some of them work. Some of them don't. So yeah, folks, if you've got questions, feel free to ask as we're going along here. I'm keeping an eye on that, so I appreciate it.
Yep. And then so in my my more homework, if I was a teacher in school, my students would revolt with all this homework, but more homework is so strategy, what do I want to achieve, taxonomy, metadata, and like what sort of features and all that sort of stuff to understand it. And then kind of once you have that basis, I think that the next obvious step in the homework is kind of creating that roadmap. Maybe it's your requirements, maybe it's not that specific, maybe it's, well, here's my goals, here's what I want to achieve, kind of spelled out more specifically, not the grand vision. Now we're getting down to brass tacks. So, goals or problems, the things that you want to deal with today. And so I've got kind of 2 quick slides on an example of mapping a goal and mapping a problem statement. So the goal, maybe your statement is, we want to eliminate email attachments for documents when collaborating as a team, right? I think this is a problem that everyone has. I start an email, I upload an attachment, somebody wants to change it, now we've got version 1, now we're on version 7. Even to this day, we still have that problem. So that's an obvious win for SharePoint. It's, you put the document in there, you click the share button, you type your email, everybody gets it, now we're pointing to the same one. So, that's a goal. You could use capabilities to kind of say what things solve that, and then even a little bit of a statement about how, just to get you verbalizing that. You can take this as far or as not as you want. Kind of the flip side of the coin is a problem statement, sort of glass half full, half empty sort of thing. So instead of the what do we want to achieve, you could also look back and say, well, what do I really hate about what we do right now? And I hear this one from everybody, which is we can never find documents on our network drive or our current intranet. The name of the document doesn't help. Maybe it's a meaningless name. And then everyone has their own approach to storing document in who knows what folder, right? I hear this all the time, just over and over, and it's,
you hear it in your dreams.
Yeah, it's that same problem everybody has. I can create a folder. I'm going to name it Bo's Stuff. That means something to me. I know that means it contains these 5 things. But then when Danny comes looks at my folder, he goes, I have no clue what Bo's Stuff is going to contain. So now I got to click on it.
Yep.
Go, that's not what I was looking for. Back out. That's where taxonomy, metadata, automatic metadata, all those sort of things could solve that problem. You just have to be disciplined enough to define the rules that everybody has to play by.
Excellent. Excellent.
This is actually a fun one. So the homework one, not so fun. Choose your brand. I've been involved in a lot of these where people choose their brand. And so brand is in this sense, is a pretty broad thing. So obviously it's going to be based upon your vision. That'll feed into your brand. And this is your chance to kind of get your first chance at a little bit of a groundswell. And so you could engage your user to do surveys. We here at Three Wheel did that to name our cafe. That's the name we decided on. It's not the one I picked, but I'm behind it now. What'd you pick? I don't remember. I think it might have been the Hub, or it might have been, I don't know. I like the cafe. It's good too. I like the Hub, and Lane and I were involved in a really big effort back in the day where we called it the Workplace. All those names, do different things, and your goal with it is obviously you can just leave it called SharePoint, and everybody could say, hey, go check it out, it's on SharePoint, and that sounds so exciting. But if you give it a name, that helps in several ways. Like if you have several versions of SharePoint, on-prem, Office 365, 2010, then your new one has a name, and then it becomes, it kind of be like if we didn't name our children, we could say, well, we got the kid. Yeah. Well, everybody's got the kid, but now that I named him Barrett, I have a little more relationship there, right? So that's what brand is about in that sense. But then you can carry it forward into creating logos, creating T-shirts. I was on projects where we had mouse pads, pins, shirts, all that sort of stuff. So you can, if you've got the budget, you can go all the way there with.
Sounds like you're at another company with a larger marketing budget than I have, my friend. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it was marketing the brand to an extreme, and it's got its pros and cons, because when you wear the shirt for your portal, everybody's like, where do I get one of those? Either that, or they're like, what a dork, he's wearing a shirt for his portal. But yeah.
You are a huge nerd.
Yes, especially if my wife would see me wear it. But the brand and how far you take it is going to be highly dependent on everyone. I've worked where brand meant we just changed out the logo on the top and we called it something else. And then others where we've done some color scheme changes, and that they match the corporate color, and then all the way down to where you do custom master page work. And all of that sort of crazy stuff that allows you to just, what people say, make SharePoint not look like SharePoint. So,
and this is nice because I love it when you when you're in a meeting and someone says, "Where's this?" and they're saying, like, we'll say it's on Cafe. Yeah, and I know for us, it seems like, I guess people will look at, everyone typically has an intranet and then an extranet, and those are would be typically named different.
Yeah.
Correct. So you would say, look in this, almost like you have a different handle for the different places where you're putting your documents.
That's a good point. Yeah. So there could even different components or usage of SharePoint can have different names, and it also now with Office 365 and how many products we have out there, we've got Planner, we've got Groups, we've got Teams, we've got SharePoint proper, email, everything, right? So if you just refer to your SharePoint portal as a thing, that can help eliminate the what in Office 365 are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So
that's interesting, because I think we're calling the Cafe for the SharePoint part of this, but then we have the Yammer community. I wonder if people start naming like their Yammer community something different, or it's the same, or have you seen anything happen with that? I know I'm asking questions out of the blue.
No, I've seen a little bit of both. Like what we do with Yammer, I've seen repeated several times, which is you have Yammer standalone and your different Yammer groups in there, sort of topical based or department based or whatever, sort of, you can have as many or as few as you want, but then we sort of integrate those into specific components of our SharePoint, so that social's intermingled with content management sort of stuff. And in that sense, Yammer stands alone in its app and in its, just going directly to Yammer, but then sometimes Yammer is at least in context of your portal too. So,
nice.
And that, ultimately that's what a portal is too, right? Everything doesn't have to live in that portal. The portal is just kind of a way to get to content anywhere.
So in chat, everybody wake up. Hello.
We got a question?
No, we don't have a question, but I've got a question for you guys. What have you named your intranet or extranet, or what do you call SharePoint? Do you just call it SharePoint? Do you call it intranet? I'm just interested to see what people have, and if you could put that in chat, that would be wonderful. We'd love to interact with you there and find out what you call it. Again, we call it the Cafe. And part of the reason why I did like the idea, besides my liking coffee and tea a lot, I switched over. You notice I started with my leftover Coke Zero from lunch, and now I'm switching over to my coffee.
I'm on a constant caffeine drip. It's coffee, Coke, coffee.
Tommy likes tea, I like coffee. So the whole idea of, again, it's an informal place where you sit down and have conversations, the idea of the cafe is what we sort of liked, is it's a place that you can go to talk to to interact with other people.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a lot of the early days of Three Wheel, we spent a lot of time in Starbucks sitting around together working on it.
We could have called it the Bucks.
I don't know. So the whole idea of calling it the cafe just seemed to work for us.
Yeah, and we don't have to talk about this slide too much, but that I had some example brand names with their connotations in here, sort of like here's a brand and here's a tagline or something. So.
Nice.
So the next one, keep it clean, simple, and consistent. And I actually don't think I had the word consistent in the white paper, but I was thinking about it more and more. So I added it here. So it's a bonus from the white paper.
Bonus word.
Yeah. So my real point here is I find this a lot with customers, is there's a natural tendency or desire to put everything where they think all the eyeballs will always be. So
Okay.
let's start with your home page, and you know, if you have 12 different departments involved, all 12 of them are going to want 3 things on your home page, you know. So obviously when I go to the home page and I've got to scroll for a day to get to the one thing I want, it's not really a great experience. So simple means you're going to have to make some hard decisions about what belongs on your home page,
Okay.
and what might require a click to go to or a few clicks to get to, and that sort of stuff. So keeping it clean where people aren't put off by their interactions with your system. So it's a definite case where less is more. There's 2 key roles when you're trying to strike that balance too. So what I first referred to is like I'm a consumer, so I'm just trying to go find stuff. So I don't want a lot of noise in my way. I just want to kind of either go use search and find it, or navigate to it, or whatever, make my life easy. The other part of keeping it simple, and I think I have this in there, is I'm a contributor and I'm adding stuff. And that's the more simple sort of thing, which is a lot of customers, when they you know, we talk metadata, there's this feeling of, okay, well, now that I get metadata, I'm going to make everybody tell me 10 things about that document when they contribute it, because now I'll be able to search for it by those 10 things. And that creates friction, and friction is bad. So if you put that many barriers to getting content in, you won't get content in. So you got to strike a balance. And I usually say 3 to 5, but it's going to vary. That's sort of your max number of fields that you want to make people provide, to give that right amount of, let me know about the document, but let me not create too much friction.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Cool.
This is another throwback. I actually think I had this as a blog post way back when.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's relevant to me generationally, I think, because, you know, I started out on MySpace, and I remember being so annoyed when you go to different people's pages that things move around. I can't find the same thing. There's no consistency. It's noisy. It's loud. Sure, as a person, I can express myself with flames and all that sort of stuff, but as a consumer, it was off-putting. And I think that that's one of the perfect example of why people moved from MySpace to Facebook, because Facebook said, we're going to let you socialize. We're a content management system for your personal life to spew content, but we're going to do it in a constrained, consistent fashion. So when you go to everybody's page, everything's the same. It's a consistent user experience. Adoption increases, all that stuff. My grandma can Facebook, you know, she would not have MySpace. She certainly wouldn't have been doing the crazy HTML and script stuff that people were trying to do to customize their page. So that sort of consistency, cleanliness, and even the fact that you could do less with Facebook at the time than you could with MySpace, still it won out. So people sometimes think, well, flexibility is always going to win out. That's not necessarily true. Consistency, simplicity, reduced friction are going to win out. So the next one is input forms, which is in that same vein of reduced friction. It's pretty contrived example, but you know, on the left-hand side, that is the out-of-the-box contact form in SharePoint, right? So if you start a contacts list, that's what you got, which every time I show that to people, I'm kind of like, are they really going to use all those fields? Most of the time they're not. No one, you know, puts address really into SharePoint that much anymore. You're not going to mail them a letter. So on the left-hand side is sort of this monstrous form with lots of stuff. What do I fill out? What do you want from me? And then on the other side, on the right-hand side, is the sort of a simplified, clean and to the point. Just give me your full name, email, mobile phone. You know, if you have 1,000 people filling this out, I would venture to guess your percentage of people that will actually do it would be on the right-hand side, right? So that's a, you know, just think about that on every form you're doing and what you're requiring of contributors to do. There's a yin and yang to this. If you have a smaller number of trained contributors, say it's more of a content management publishing system and you have 5 people that do everything, you can probably require more of them. But if it's a wide open system and 1,000 people might be contributing, the amount of stuff you can require from them is going to naturally need to go down because they're not all going to know the same thing. They're not going to be able to pick that one specific piece of metadata that you know about.
Yeah, there's some people chime in.
I see that.
It's good. We love interaction here.
Cool.
But it was nice. Beth had shared what their at the Braves, the SharePoint on-prem is called Homeplate.
Sweet.
That's awesome. That's a great SharePoint Online. I didn't know we had that. Well done. I guess I wonder if is they're going to continue to call it Homeplate? I wonder, Beth, or is there going to be a new? I wonder if they're going to have a new name for the online version. Another one said Share. So a lot of people put Share as part of the name of their. I don't think we had any examples of that, but a lot of people sort of want to, I guess, talk a little bit about its lineage, which is SharePoint, but using the word share in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of connotations to the word share. It's about collaboration, getting things up there, and all that sort of stuff. Homeplate seems like it's obviously a relationship to the Braves, and that it's a home, and that you've made it around the field. So there's different things that you can just emote from a name for sure.
Awesome, great. Thanks for the input. So nice, we're not alone.
Yeah, I'm talking to myself here. So plan for mobile, sometimes it's an afterthought for people, but it's got to be something you think about. One of the obvious great things about Office 365 is that it is not behind a firewall, accessible by on any device and all that sort of stuff. So that's important, but when I say plan for mobile, you might be on premise developing a farm. Your constraints, your rules might be more challenging. So you need to plan for that. Things that I think are really key to keep in mind are some customers want to go all in on mobile and go mobile responsive, which can be costly, but there's a lot of advantage to that. And I think on the next page I'll show a screenshot of like a fully mobile responsive thing we did. Office 365 itself is going that way, but is not fully mobile responsive now. You've got mobile, or you've got modern lists and libraries, and then the modern pages feature that's been rolling out is, I'll say, pretty much mobile responsive. You get the hamburger menu when you collapse down and all that sort of stuff. But it's, nothing is 100% of the way there, and you're always going to have some unique challenges unless you're fully custom. But then,
how is that rolling? How is that? Do you have any idea? Sort of like it
modern
seems
pages?
Like modern pages. Like I go to some pages and they're modern. I think one of the questions I had for next week was, like, I want to change I want to turn this into. If you guys don't want to ask any questions, I will ask all my questions to Bo. But I'll follow up next week on this. But I wanted to basically for us to start to use some of the modern pages, and I wanted to have our home page be modern, but I just noticed it's sort of showing up in different places.
Yeah, so I think Office 365 right now is a little bit of a crossroads, personally.
Okay.
This is, not warranted or anything, but
everything else is warranted.
So if I create a list, I get modern UI, the option for modern UI. If I create a document library, I get modern UI. If I create a app, which is any other content type besides a document or a list, so a contact, a calendar, a task, a whatever, those are not yet modern.
Okay, that just doesn't make sense, but that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know why it's that way, but that's what I see right now. So if you're in that scenario and you create a custom list, you can have the modern experience, and then you jump over to your contacts list and back to 99, 2010, whatever. So that's inconsistent now.
Okay.
Modern UI and modern pages is a little bit of the same way, which I really am trying to push those, but not all the cool things that you could do in the old pages is there yet, right? So you always run into there's like a dozen kind of things you can add to a modern page, and then anything beyond that's going to be a little bit of custom client code or whatever.
Okay.
So that's hard for power users to get the most out of it. I know that that'll improve. The other thing people don't seem to like is that gigantic banner at the top that you can't get rid of, that takes up 150 pixels of the top, that says your page title and that thing behind it. And I'm sure that'll change over time. But the other things that are great is when you use that page and you collapse it down and you get the little menu, the hamburger menu and all that stuff, it looks really nice. So I think it's Too soon to tell, but it's going there.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
The other thing, that middle bullet point in there on the mobile that I'd like to mention is consider apps to augment. And actually tomorrow morning I'm going to show in a sprint review the Yammer app and the Office or the SharePoint online app on my phone, on my iPhone. So those are good ways to connect into your content from an app. You know, so they're a native app, and so they have that going for them. And then there's a lot of third-party ones out there that have been around for a long time. Collegio, Harmon.ie, Breezy, bunch of them. Each have their pros and cons. You know, you can check them out. I know I put some on some customers there, on-premise farm. Everybody used iPads, and so we went through a round of which app works best for like the CEO, CIO kind of thing.
And this sort of maybe rolls into the branding and mobile and sort of in general, which is customers can sort of use what comes out of the box with Office 365 or SharePoint Online and sort of use that as the basis. Or there's also probably a dozen different products now that have sort of grown out of being sort of something that's on top of SharePoint Online that provides maybe better branding, more web parts, more apps, but maybe a better mobile experience. And then you sort of have the whole experience where you can build your own custom thing, so you can start building your own stuff. And we typically, it seems like on the projects you've been on, we'll try to, if it's a smaller size project, just use what you can out of Office 365.
Yep.
The medium-sized projects are probably one where you might look at something that you could purchase and use on top, maybe to get a little bit more functionality. And then for some clients want to customize the whole thing out and really invest a lot of time, money, and energy around this.
Yep. And
go ahead and build it out themselves.
Yep.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It's all about your goals and your budget, really.
Yeah.
And so that's this next screenshot. It's one, I guess it's going on a year or two old now, but it was a fully mobile responsive on-premise farm. And so, we were already doing branding, and you'll notice in the top corner it says the hub, so that was the name of this one. Card style view, lots of filtering views, very content push on the home page, and then collaboration on lots of other pages. But on the left is sort of a 1920 by 1080 resolution, and then on the right was my iPhone, and it kind of shows how everything collapsed down, and you've got the hamburger in the top, and your cards go from 3 across to stacked, and really fun, mobile responsive. It's Angular, it's Bootstrap, it's all those kind of things that people use to do just normal public-facing websites. This is sitting on top of SharePoint.
That seems like the direction that we're going into right now is at least for us, where somebody wants to have a more customized app, is we're using third-party frameworks along with SharePoint to go build these things out.
Yeah, like Microsoft's doing things with React now and everything. They're embracing that, catching up to the people who've been embracing it before them that were using it on top of the Microsoft APIs in SharePoint.
Beautiful.
Yep. All right, so not so fun and sexy, but consider your audience. What does that really mean, right?
Not sexy, huh?
Yeah.
Audience?
Your audience. It's a hard one, but it really comes down to people who use your application are not all the same, right? And part of it is experience. Part of it is goals. Part of it is domain knowledge. So they're not going to approach your intranet in the same way. They're not going to know naturally where to navigate that somebody else who knows it better would. They may be trying to get something out of it that a different person doesn't care about. So those sort of things are going to be a challenge. The other thing is SharePoint always has more than one way to do almost anything. When you have the little ellipsis, and you have the menu that hangs off of it, and then you had the ribbon in 2013 that would do the same thing, and then maybe even a third way, that creates more confusion than anything. So for that, I typically, when I train people or show people, I only show them one way, and if they discover the other way, more power to you.
Yeah.
With the modern UI, that's getting better. It's actually cut down on the ways you can do things or the options and all that stuff. So definitely one of the modern UI things and lists and document libraries that I like is that that ribbon is going away.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you got to think about how do they get to what they need, and that's kind of where I was alluding to, that generally you have two types of people. They may be doing those two things all in the same activity, but there's a navigator, so that's somebody who bookmarks a lot of things, or they go to the home page and then they click the menu and they navigate to the third level, and then they go into the document library and then to the folder, and they know right where they're going, or they can kind of figure it out, navigators. And then there are searchers who they don't remember it, right? Maybe they can't remember anything. Me, yeah. And so those people are the ones that, you know, I might have gone to Google, did the same search term, and clicked on the same link 700 times. I never bookmark it, and I never navigate to it and type in a URL, so I'm a searcher. And I actually found, like, there was an executive on a project where I went through all of this stuff about how people could navigate the site and all this stuff, and, like, nothing from him. And then the simplest page was a search box that you typed in a term, got to your results page, it could filter with refiners, and that made his day. And so it just proves that what people want to get out, whether they're a navigator or a searcher, is really going to be important. And you need to support both.
Yeah.
You need to have a navigation scheme, site structure that's easy for people to understand, but you still need a really good search experience and metadata for the people who don't even care about your navigation.
Well, I can't be either one of these. Realistic and methodical at the same time?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll go faster on these.
You can pick one of them. Just pick one of them.
The realistic thing is, people. I work with a lot of people who say, yeah, the portal's going to be here on June 1st. Well, what is the portal? I don't really know. It's going to have some documents in it. Well, how do you know it's going to be here on June 1st if you haven't even defined what it is or any of that sort of stuff? So that's being realistic. I try not to get locked into immovable dates. That's really hard. But instead use milestones. You know, in the vein of a portal's never done, say version 1 of the portal is due on this date, and then kind of say, well, what does version 1 include? Mm-hmm. Version 1 might include a specific business unit, or a specific set of functionality, or a specific set of functionality for a business unit. But you get to define that and then roll it out with milestones. You know, going to different business units is a good way to keep it moving along, focus on one business unit's needs at a time, the next one learn from the former and build it on there, and then kind of learn from that and reincorporate it, so that you're not trying to satisfy 12 different business units all at the same time in big portals and stuff like that.
Like, I know with our public website, I say I'm going to be doing quarterly updates. So it's almost like you just have a cadence of when it's a good practice with software that you're not all trying to focus around one date and what's going on. It's more of just you're releasing software over periods of time.
Yeah, I look at it a lot like our Agile Scrum process, where you're just developing a cadence. Like, honestly, if somebody is not asking for something new in your portal, or to do something new with it, or to put something new in it, and that 6 months of nothing, nobody wanting anything with your portal, is probably a bad sign that nobody's using it, right? If somebody's asking for more stuff, it means that they're challenging it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So awesome. Last one here, analyze everything, and this is twofold. So that when you say analyze, I'll go to the last bullet first. People usually think about usage reporting. SharePoint has some so usage reporting.
Okay. Is it getting better? Office
365 has some pretty cool reports, and I use those.
Okay.
And then some of the same reports that I remember from 2007 are sort of still around in SharePoint, where you got to turn on a few features, and then the reports will start to run, and then it's this CSV file that you pull out, and it's kind of like, well, and then from that you gotta, well, how am I going to turn this into pretty charts and all that sort of stuff? And that's where something like Google Analytics, people own Web Trends, or there's Adobe or Azure Insights, maybe plugging in one of those for that sort of usage stuff will help you, just to get a sense for what are people using, not using, doing, all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of the tactical what's going on there. The one above it is equally important, which I would, I said user feedback, but as I think about it, I think of it more as user sentiment. and that is, sending out surveys. Actually, a customer of ours sent out this survey they had. It was a portal that was built before they were there, but they said, well, it's been a year since the portal's here. Can people send us feedback on what's going on? And I think that sort of stuff is very valuable to determine sentiment, and it may take bribery, gift card for filling it out or whatever, but you get people to give you their honest opinion. And I have some example questions like to sort of show you how that survey might go. So maybe it's a simple survey, and this is a year post launch, and you got 2 questions in here that are directly related back to our goal mapping and our problem mapping, right? Mm-hmm. So now you could say, hey, the portal has reduced or eliminated my need to email attachments, and let people rate that. Mm-hmm. And if you get back a bunch of 1s, you're going, well, we did something wrong there. Yeah. If people say, 10, then you can learn from that. But that sort of system, simplistic questions and ratings from your users, can help you figure out what you need to tune, what you're doing wrong and doing right, because we'll never do everything right the first time. Yeah. So
you can just use MPS and ask, would you recommend your intranet to a colleague?
Would you recommend? Would you tell your friend to come work here because of our portal or not? Yeah.
Right now, I don't know. I don't want to know the answer to that question, but yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Anything else for this last one before we get questions or any conclusions that we want to take away from this? What is maybe looking at all of you had 8 of them and sort of looking at all of this, any insights? And I think the way I look at this is that there's smaller organizations who are trying to get the most out of just getting things onto Office 365, getting the most out. It seems like it's just been such a fast-moving. Microsoft's putting stuff out all the time. It's almost difficult just to stay on top of what's going on. Yeah. So it's almost like a lot of ways we're just trying to help companies keep up, utilize what's there.
Right.
And then with some of the companies, the larger companies that we work with, they're really looking at this as sort of like, it is our workplace. It's our place where we're delivering. If they're a professional services organization, it's a place where we go and we work on projects together. It's a core business asset that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really like a commodity now, right? It's just ubiquitous. I'm putting documents in there. I'm sharing them. I'm doing stuff. Like that's the goal, is where it just becomes second nature. You don't really think much about it except for that it enables you, and then you're quicker at doing the other things that matter. I can get to what I need, and everything else that matters, I can focus more on that. Conclusion. One other thing that came to mind, kind of in my 8 things when I was talking about the more homework. One thing that I hope I didn't convey, which is don't get in like analysis paralysis sort of scenario. Don't spend a year and a half defining your taxonomy and never moving forward. It's okay to move fast and break things. We've been brought in to help people, and people can always adjust their taxonomy after the fact or move their site structure around. So it's a balance of doing the right amount of homework, but not preventing yourself from moving forward. So think about that too. I didn't mean to come off like you cannot start until you've done these.
Until you've done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well, with an approach of a Scrum approach, is you are all the time looking at that sprint and trying to release software at the end of that, to constantly be thinking about iterations and getting things out for people to take a look at, so you're never sitting on something for too long.
Right. Yeah, and we do it in the development of software sense, but it could be the development and rollout of a portal sense. What comes out in each sprint can be releases to business units or turning on or education on different features or whatever. So
excellent. Any other questions folks might have? You can go ahead and ask them. I'll keep an eye out for that. Anything that we've brought up, if you want to, in the question too, was there anything that's sort of insightful that you're taking away from this, maybe that we can share internally. Any other questions that folks might have about this? And before we get off, just a reminder, if you want to go ahead and you can download this presentation, if you look in the handout section of the GoToWebinar interface. You can download them from there. Also, I'll take a recording of this if you wanted to share with colleagues. We'll have a recording of this available depending upon how the video turns out. We may or
Post
may
it
not.
on YouTube and
we may just have the
make
audio
air
for this,
bubbles with our
folks.
faces on it.
I don't know if I like looking at my bald head too much here, but we may just have the audio. We'll see how that goes, but we just wanted to experiment here a little bit. We're all about experimenting, and just wanted to do the video just so you can see our smiling faces.
I'm the lucky first one to try it, and maybe the last, right? I don't know.
So thank you everybody for the questions. Got a lot of people chiming in here saying thanks. Appreciate it. Again, the just sort of the last little bit with this. If you want to follow up with me, that's great. This is my email address. The website is a great place. We try to constantly put new content out there. We also have a podcast that if you're interested in that as well. It's a great place to sort of stay on top of sort of what we're thinking about.
You should read the white paper to people in a podcast, and then they could just listen to it as they go to bed.
As they go to bed.
Sounds a thing.
Well, great. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in and saying thanks. We appreciate everybody taking the time to do this. And have a wonderful weekend, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
I saw that time up there, but I guess we started a little bit before. Cool, under 2.